Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining today's session, Power BI updates for enterprise analytics. This is the Q3 edition of this presentation that is ongoing and really focuses on the latest updates across the Power BI desktop, Power BI service, and Power BI mobile applications. And we really focus on features that are relevant to common enterprise analytics deployments of Power BI. So we do this in the form of a live presentation with some demos that you'll see today. And we also have a corresponding blog with some recorded demos on it that you could reference later as well. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into it. A lot to cover today. The agenda is really to just, again, set the stage for why we're here, and then we'll jump into updates for consumers. So people that are really using Power BI just to um, digest organizational information, right? So these are people that are usually read-only users. Then you have updates for report designers and Power BI developers, so people that are actively creating content for Power BI. And then we have updates for admins and content managers. So we'll end with updates that we're excited about, and then if we have time, we'll take some questions at the end. All right, so a little bit about myself. My name is David Kettinger, and I've been with Preferred Strategies for going on 8 years now. And I've spent most of that time as a Power BI consultant helping our customers deploy Power BI with our quick launch solution. So when I'm not busy playing in Power BI, you can usually find me out exploring, which is what this picture is. I went to the University of Colorado for my master's degree, which is where I fell in love with hiking mountains and skiing. So um, if you ever want to talk snow, I'm your guy. All right. Well, let's jump into it. So a bit about preferred strategies. We help companies turn their enterprise data sources into trusted and powerful analytical models to really provide the single source or version of truth, and also to provide a blueprint for advancing all of your data-driven initiatives. And so what we've found is really, there's two common ways that organizations deploy analytics, right? So you either have departmental deployments or enterprise deployments. And with departmental analytics, we usually see business unit led reporting processes that can often be, repetitive and manual and error prone. Maybe you got people using legacy tools to extract data to Excel, and then using Excel to model that or transform that data, and then maybe they put that into Power BI, maybe not, right? So typically these lead to data silos that are hard to manage, govern, and secure. So with our quick launch solution, we deliver an enterprise analytics approach that offers a lot of benefits, including automating data workflows and providing better security and better governance, as well as just enabling business users with a better experience that really improves the trust in the data. So this is what we'll be using for our demos today, our quick launch for Power BI data model. And let's go ahead and jump into it. So as many of you know, the Power BI team operates under a continuous release cycle, meaning that they're constantly delivering new features and updates throughout the year. And with this release plan and report, you can see that September was the second busiest month behind March of this year for the Power BI team, but not a lot of action from July or June, but still plenty to cover today. If you want to view this report in your own Power BI tenant, you can go to this link down here that we'll provide in the slide deck, and you can actually add this as an app and have an interactive version of this release cadence that you can review yourself. So as far as update statuses, we've denoted two categories, one for preview and one for premium. So for preview features, we always want to let customers and people know that these features are just that, they're in preview. So you need to be cautious when deploying these to production environments. Um, and um, and for premium features that, you know, usually that means that it needs to be either in a premium per user capacity or a premium capacity or now a fabric capacity, right? So we want to make sure that we let users know that this is a feature that's not out of the box, but you have to pay for it. Okay. So let's go ahead and jump into updates for consumers. So for this one, we really have two. And the first one, and this will be common for several features that we review today, but they can be applicable to all three user groups, right? So the first one is that Power BI data sets are now called Power BI semantic models. So Power BI is sort of getting a little bit more technical with this feature name, but I think it sort of sets the stage for the direction they're going with Fabric and future feature releases. But basically, all of the data sets that you knew in Power BI will now be called semantic models. And really, this is a common terminology or concept in business intelligence. And really, it's just data. Data is facts or numbers in an electronic format, and it needs to be collected and stored and processed to extract the valuable information that it holds. And so different use cases require different sets of data, and being able to understand the relationships or the semantics that exist between those sets of data is important for making business decisions. And so that's what the semantic model does, is it serves the purpose of describing the structure of the data set and then enhancing that with calculations and relationships and perspectives and partitions and so on. Okay, so to show you this, I'll just come out to the Power BI service. And from here, as a consumer, many of you know that you're mostly going to consume your information from an app, right? So this is an app here for the VP of sales. And if I come in here and I choose this C related option here, you'll notice that I can see all the reports that are used to build this dashboard, as well as now the what's known as a semantic model, right? So now I can see all of the semantic models that are used for this dashboard as well, and can even do more sophisticated things like explore the data or create a report as a consumer. And we'll look at this as we go into further demos today. All right, so I'm going to come back to PowerPoint. And let's go ahead and talk about the next update for consumers, which is the ability to choose startup content for the Power BI mobile app, and also with some updates to Siri. So this is an area that I think the Power BI team is really focusing on more. To me, I feel like the mobile experience was sort of a second class experience in Power BI. So I'm happy to see all the investments and features that they're making there. So I'm going to come to cast my mobile device. So bear with me for a second. And from here, we can go and open the Power BI mobile application. So I'm going to come in and just open that up. And now you'll see that you have the ability to have a piece of content automatically load when the mobile app opens. And so why is that relevant? Well, if you're a team of, oftentimes in mobile analytics, it's not just one person accessing, maybe a team of people is accessing a shared iPad, for example. So maybe this is used for an operations, and they're constantly just using the same dashboard. So having that dashboard be able to load every time somebody opens the app or opens the iPad is a big improvement for the user experience. So again, this is now just a completely interactive mobile version of my report and ready for users to use. The other way that you can access content more efficiently now with the mobile app is using natural language queries. So I can just say, "Hey Siri, open sales analytics report." And so you can see now that there's been an investment sorry about that, from Microsoft to really make this mobile experience better by integrating it with Siri now. So let me show you how you can set these two things up. So if I come up here to this dot 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 in the top right, um, I can see here that I have the ability to edit the phrase that Siri associates to this piece of content. So I can change this to be whatever, correlate to whatever content it is. So maybe it's a procurement report. I can say open procurement analytics, right? So that's pretty easy and self-explanatory. The other thing that you can do in here is um, you can come into the dot 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 in the top right, and you can choose to set a piece of content as the launch item. So if I choose set as launch item here, you'll see I get a prompt that says, "Hey, it's gonna open this every time," and I can choose OK. And again, that's how you get that piece of content to load every time the mobile app opens. So a couple cool updates for consumers that I wanted to point out there. Let me jump back into PowerPoint, and we will keep moving on. All right, so that brings us to the next section, which is updates for report creators. So the first one I have here is a new line type and the ability to add some leader lines to your visuals. So for a long time, we were sort of limited to these jagged, I call them sort of like a shark's mouth line or laddered lines, and I'll show you that in here in a second. But with the latest release, you can choose a new line type that makes your visuals a little bit more refined. So I'm going to come into Power BI Desktop for this example and come to our sales analytics report here. And you can see I have a couple line charts. I have a line chart and then I have an area chart, right? And this update applies to both. So I'm going to come in here and just open this line chart up in focus mode here so that we can see it a bit better. And now you can kind of see what I'm talking about, right? You can see it's very linear and just goes directly from one data point to another, which can often lead to this jagged appearance. So the other thing here is you'll notice that we sort of have this overlap of my data labels. So let's see how we can make this visual a little bit more appealing. So if I come here to the format option here, and I come down to lines, you'll notice now that there is a new line type here. So I mentioned that you have the ability to choose the step one, which is that more laddered approach to the visual. But now you could also choose to come to a from linear to smooth, which then starts to sort of rounds the appearance of the connections between the different data points. So again, if I go back to the report here, you can see it's starting to look a little bit better and a little bit more polished. But we can take this a step further with our leader lines here. So I'm going to come in and close this and then go to data labels down here. And another update to these two visualizations is the ability to add these leader lines. And so if I turn that on, you'll notice not much has happened, but because I haven't set my offset here for my data labels. So if I come here and I start to play with this, you can see that it's gonna take those data labels and then move them away from the data points, so that's a little bit easier to read, right? I can also check set the maximum offset if I want to keep it from expanding too much. And then if we come back in to our report, you can see that these leader lines are dynamic to the layout. So they actually will change the orientation based upon the space of the visual. And I really just felt like these are, really, really essential visualization updates for these two types of charts that I wanted to point out to you. Okay, so let's move on to the next one I have here, which is um, the bubble range scaling options for scatter and map visuals. So what the heck is that? Well, if I come back to Power BI Desktop, you'll see that I have a scatter chart here. Let's open this guy up in focus mode as well. Okay, so previously, if you had a scatter chart, you couldn't control anything except for the size, and you couldn't dynamically change your data points within this visual based on the data. But now you can. So if I come in here to format as well, and I go this time to markers, you'll see I have a couple things here. So one is I see that I have this range scaling option, but it says deprecated. And that's because if you have a scatter chart in an existing report before this feature was released, it'll say that this has been deprecated, and you have the ability to set this now to a few different options. You have auto, which is the one that is set by default when you create a new visualization going forward. And it just basically tries to pick the best of these two based upon the data characteristics. And these two options are magnitude and data range. So magnitude really works by scaling the data points based upon closely following the distribution of your data. So if I choose that, I can choose magnitude. You can see it didn't really change much, right? But I can also, maybe bump the size up. So maybe the littler data points are a little bit more easy to see. And then the other option here is data range. And data range just really ties, and you can see that the smaller one changed over here. It was very subtle. But the data range ties the data points to the true minimum and maximum of the data here. So just thought I'd point that out as a nice enhancement to these types of visualizations. Again, this works for both the scatter chart as well as the bubbles on your map visuals as well. Okay, let's go ahead and move on. So the next update I have is really, again, focusing on some mobile enhancements. And this one's really around the layout of the Power BI desktop canvas. So again, I mentioned that it kind of felt like mobile was sort of a second class layout in the Power BI. But again, I think it's getting some much needed love. So let's go ahead and show you that in action as well. So I'm going to come back to my sales analytics report. And from here, if I go to just a copy of this page that before I made a mobile layout, I can see down here that I actually have a new icon in the lower left of the Power BI desktop. So this allows you basically to toggle between your different layouts. Before you had to go to view and then you had to go to mobile layout. So really it's just taking a click away. But again, it's about making this a first class experience, right? And so if I click on mobile here, you see that I have the option to drag some elements and create this sort of mobile view. If I didn't create this mobile view, then my users, when they opened up the Power BI mobile app, would see something similar to this, where you get this horizontal landscape version of the report, which isn't a great user experience on the mobile because you're zooming in and you're constantly tilting your phone different ways. So again, this is a nice enhancement. But the other cool thing that came out recently was the ability to make this mobile design canvas interactive, which I thought was huge, because before it was just a really cumbersome experience. But now if I come in here, um, I can start to see what the user will experience when they interact with certain visualizations, right? So if I come in here and just drag a few of these on my canvas, I can then start to click on this and see how things resize. So for example, if you have a data table, you can start to see how the columns shift around and resize those here interactively. So this is a big step up in my opinion. And what this looks like once it's built out completely is something like this, where you can have your slicers in here, and this is the same report that I showed you um, in the mobile demo out in the first section. So take a look at that. Make sure that you are setting up a mobile-friendly version of your reports, so that if users do use the Power BI mobile app to consume it, they're getting the best experience possible. Alrighty, so the last one I have here, which I'm excited about, is some updates to the semantic model details page in the Power BI service, and the ability to explore data within that semantic model in new ways. And one of those ways is to have Power BI automatically create a report for you. And so this has been around for a while, but it's really taken a big leap forward with the new AI components of the Fabric updates. So let's go ahead and show this. I'm going to come to the Power BI service, and if I come to just a data, excuse me, I'm going to make that mistake a lot. Not a data set, a semantic model. And I click on that, you'll notice that I have a lot of metadata and information around this semantic model, and a lot of actions I can take from it. So I can see things like, is it endorsed? When's the last refresh date? Some sensitivity information, as well as what content is built off of it, and is it downstream or upstream of this asset, right? And you can also see this the schema over here, the different tables of the semantic model, and start to explore it a bit. If I come up here to this explore data option, I have the ability to do a few different things. If I just click on explore data, you'll notice that it kind of creates this sort of exploration window where you can start to drag on types of different data fields, and that's pretty cool. But I like this element that automatically creates a report for you. And so if I choose this, you'll see that it's generating the report for me. Our data models, our enterprise models, can be big, right? And they can have data that might not necessarily be applicable to your analysis. So you saw there, I had the ability to select information that I'm interested in. But again, just the ability to create a well-formatted report like this in a matter of seconds as a starting point, I think is huge. You can see that the data might need a little bit of work, right? So expense variance amount, actual prior year by business unit type might not be the analysis you were looking for, but now I can quickly change this. So if I come in here to save this and choose my quick launch sales workspace, you can see now that it's just like every other report, and I can start to change out the fields here, right? So I can start to make this more relevant to the analysis that I was after. So again, I think this was a really big jump forward with this feature. So I wanted to point that out to you. And again, this is part of these Fabric features that are being released, and one of those is Copilot for Power BI, and I'm hoping to have more on that for you guys in the next iteration of this presentation. So let's go ahead and move on. Come back to PowerPoint, and that brings us to our last section of users. That is our admins or content managers. Okie dokie. So we have 5 updates here. The first one is really around making the tenant settings management easier and making Power BI admin's life easier. And it does this in really two new features that I thought were useful and worth pointing out. So I'm going to come here to the Power BI service again, and I'm going to come to this time. I'm going to come to our admin portal, right? So settings, admin portal takes us out here, and the first one I can see is my tenant settings. And you'll notice now that you get these sort of these new flags or icons that say, hey, this is new. Maybe you haven't checked this out yet. This applies not only to sort of the navigation of the admin portal, but also the different tenant settings as well. So if I start to scroll through here, you'll see that I can easily see new features that or new tenant settings that I might want to come check out and see if I want this enabled for my organization or not. Um, so that was pretty cool. The other thing that I thought as you scroll through this, I mean, there's a lot of different settings in here. I remember 10 years ago when I first started working with Power BI, there was like 8 settings, and now it's giving me carpal tunnel to scroll through it. So this latest enhancement was pretty cool, and that's the ability to search, which seems pretty basic, but when you think about it, it's huge here. So if I type in a keyword like Excel, maybe I want to lock down what or control what a user's experience is like for connecting to Excel and see all the different settings that I can tweak in order to manage that. I can quickly see all the related features to that. Maybe I want to do something like export, right? So I can see, okay, now I can control the different settings that control how users are exporting data. From a data security and governance standpoint, this is huge. So a lot of different ways that you can use the search bar, but I thought it's worth just pointing out as it definitely aids the user experience here as a Power BI admin. Okay, so the next one we have is the ability to refresh your semantic models or data sets in the Power BI mobile app. So this is a preview feature, but really it gives that complete control to our admins that want to be able to monitor what's happening with their models and with their Power BI assets on the go from any mobile device. So if I come back into the Power BI mobile app and show that, give me one second. All right. So I'm gonna come back into Power BI here, and I'm gonna come this time to a workspace, and I will scroll down to the one we're using for today called Quick Launch Sales. And you can see some different content in there. I'm gonna click on semantic models here. And now, if I click on one of these, you can see some important metadata. When was the last refresh that happened? What was the last successful refresh? What's the one that's scheduled next? As well as, what sensitivity does this data hold? But the big thing here is now I can come and hit refresh, and from mobile, wherever I am in the world, can start to refresh my semantic models here. The other cool thing is if you enable alerts or notifications from the Power BI mobile app, if this fails, it will send you a push notification, as well as a link to, as you can see, to view the full details of that refresh in the web. So I thought this was a really cool feature for admins that are living an on-the-go lifestyle. So let's go ahead and close this guy and move on to the next one, which is sensitivity label bar in the Power BI service. So I showed this way back when it was in preview, but this is really around how you can apply Azure information protection policies via Purview to your Power BI content. So I'm going to come into the Power BI service here and show you what I'm talking about. So in here, if I come back to workspace. I can see I have some different semantic models here. But if I click on one, let's click on like the payroll model. That's a big one. You'll notice that in the top sort of the top content bar of the Power BI service, I now have this like the sensitivity label option to set this without having to go to the settings of the report or for the semantic model. So if I come in here and I click this, obviously payroll is sensitive information, right? We don't want people knowing people's social security numbers and bank account information and salary information, right? So I can come in here and I can mark this as confidential. And you can see now that this sensitivity label has been applied downstream to all content built off of this semantic model. And what does that mean? Well, that means that I can apply certain policies to confidential to assets that are marked as confidential that help protect my organizational data. So maybe for confidential um, for confidential assets, I don't want to have. I want to restrict my user's ability to export data, right? So maybe for this type of content, I can set up that policy. To accomplish this, you do need to have a additional license, which is the Azure Information Protection Premium license. And once you have that, you can come into your Microsoft Purview admin center and you can go into information protection and go ahead and set up these different labels as well as the policies that those labels should have for your business. Okay, so moving along, I've got two more updates for admins that I think are pretty cool. All right, so the next one we have here is dynamic subscriptions for paginated reports. So this is really Power BI taking a page out of the old SSRS or reporting services playbook with the latest in subscriptions that that are really dynamic and can map emails to parameters or data fields to filter down or customize the report distribution process. Okay, so what am I talking about? What does that mean? Okay, so I'm going to come into the Power BI service and I'm going to go look at where did I go? Sorry, this is Zoom things. Okay, so I'm going to come out here to a workspace, and this is a premium workspace. So you'll note that this is a premium feature. And if I come here to my paginated report called Regional Sales Performance, we can go ahead and run this, right? So I have a parameter on a region, and I can choose to view the report, and then it will, in this case, load the different sales reps within that region and their performance. I am not a proficient paginated report builder, but I aim to get better as time goes on. So sorry if this isn't the best looking report, but maybe my users don't want to have to come in here and log in and filter this down to their region every time they want to look at it. Maybe I want to set up a subscription that goes out every week, right? And I want to have it filtered down automatically for them. So let's show how we can set that up. So if I come to subscribe to report, you'll see the ability to create a subscription down here, and you'll see now there's two different types of subscription. You have a standard subscription that just generates and delivers one report to one recipient, or you have dynamic per recipient. And if I choose this option, I have the ability to set up a pretty cool solution here that that is dynamic. So to get this to work, I had to come in and actually set up just a simple table in Excel that had an email with my users, and then a region column that said, okay, that user is should get the East region report, and this user should get the West region report. And I'll show you what that looks like here in a second. So the first thing I need to do is connect to some data. And so I created from that Excel table a Power BI semantic model called dynamic subscriptions lookup. And if I just choose next there, I can go ahead and pull some data from that data set. And you'll see I have my email field and I have my region field. So let me go ahead and click on these two fields. And again, now you'll see what I was talking about, where I have my different email and then the region corresponding to that email, right? So one cool thing to point out here is that this actually works for recipients that are outside your organization. So I was having trouble just trying to demo this because we don't have email accounts in our BI Quick Launch demo tenant, but I actually stuck my preferred strategies account in here and assigned it a region, and it worked, which is really cool. So once you have the data that you want to bring into this solution or subscription, you go ahead and choose next. You can see you can also set up some subjects and attachment files dynamically as well. But let's go ahead and move along here. So the next thing you need to do is set up the details around this. So the first is, what do you want to call it? And then for recipients, you can enter it manually, but you can also come here to get data. And you can get all the recipients via our data set that we just pulled in, right? So I can choose the email option here, and then I can come to the subject and I can enter this manually, or I can create some dynamic subjects in my data set as well. I'm just going to call this and then include a message here, a link to the Power BI report, and then you can also choose the attachment that they get. You can see there's quite a few down here. I'm going to choose PDF, and then I'm going to choose next. And then the next thing I have here is to go ahead and set some report parameters that I want to be tied to my recipients, right? So you can see that the current value West can be used, but I can also come here to get data and then choose region and then choose next. And now that report will be filtered down to that user's region. So I can come in here and just finish this up by giving a end date to the subscription, choose the frequency, choose weekly on maybe a Monday. And once you have that set up, you can choose next and then save it and close. And so now you have this subscription on this paginated report that is, again, dynamic, and you can see the details around it. You can see that it is set to go out weekly at Monday at 11:45, but I'm not going to make y'all wait 7 minutes. You can also choose send now, which then does sort of an asynchronous send of this dynamic subscription, and you can see that it worked. And then if I come over to Outlook, the final result looks something like this, where you get this email, you get a screenshot, a link to the report, as well as a PDF that you can open up as well. So that is dynamic subscriptions. And again, that is a preview feature that is also a premium feature. All right, so the last one makes me the most nervous to demo, but I'm going to give it a shot. So a big enhancement to enterprise analytics within the Power BI ecosystem was announced in Q3, and that's really the announcement of the developer mode, which really is a different file extension in the Power BI desktop called Power BI projects, which we'll showcase here in a second. And then how these files integrate with source control systems such as Git. Git is, probably the industry standard now, and the one that we recommend to our customers. And you now have the ability to integrate Git at the developer level in Power BI desktop, as well as the Power BI service. And so this is bringing that that ability for enterprises to allow team or to enable team collaboration and automation of deployment across development and test and production environments for you know really the most mission critical BI needs, right? So obviously this might be overkill for some companies and how mature you are and the users skill sets, but for others it's going to be a welcomed addition. So let's go ahead and look at this in action. So the first thing I want to show is just how to create a Power BI project file. So I'm going to come to my Power BI desktop, and I'm going to come back to the sales analytics blog here, and we'll just come up to the file and save as. And if I come down here to the extensions, you'll see this is a PBIX right now. This is the extension that Power BI has used since its debut, and it really worked um, by compressing files into one file type called a PBIX file, which really consisted of your data set and your report and a lot of other metadata that just that Power BI used to render that report and data set. But with the Power BI project file, if I go in here and choose PBIP, you'll notice that what this does is it breaks the data set from the report. So similar to how you think about it in the Power BI service, right? When you publish a PBIX file, you get a data set and you get a report. And what this does is it basically creates text files, groupings of basically JSON files that you can leverage in source control as well as third-party applications such as Visual Studio Code and other developer tools that you might use. So let's go ahead and take a look at this solution that I've already set up. So I'm going to come just to show you guys or a little demo here that we set up. So for source control, forget Azure DevOps is that remote hosting environment. So I mean, source control is really, for people that don't know, it's just a fancy way to manage files. And it's usually used by software developers and really makes a more enterprise solution where you can have multiple people developing the same at the same time, and you can sort of check in your changes and revert back. So there's a lot of benefits to source control that I'm not going to go into here, but you'll see that for this particular repository, we have a Power BI assets folder for this quick launch project, and then we've created this quick launch sales folder under here that has all of my content that lives in my quick launch sales workspace living in it, right? So now I don't have to worry about somebody going out to my workspace and changing a report without me knowing, or deleting a report and not knowing what the latest copy was that I need to go restore, right? So it's all just living here in my source control system. And then once I map this to a local folder on my computer to work from, which looks like this, you can see here what I'm talking about with the project files, where it breaks out the sales in this example, the sales overview report into a .report file and a .dataset file. So separating that report from that data set. And if you drill into these to explore a little bit more, you'll see here that it's just a group of files here, including what's known as a PBIR file, and then some JSON files. And so I think this PBIR extension is really going to become a new extension in Power BI for reports. And you can go ahead and open this up in the Power BI desktop, and then changes that you make are actively reflected in your source control system. So I've connected, I've already opened up this report here. So I'm going to come into Power BI desktop and show you this in action. So here I have a Power BI project file open from my source control repository that I just showed you. And now, if I come in here to Visual Studio, you can see that I have my changes that I'm making actively in Power BI Desktop staged, and in this case, I have a couple that are waiting to be staged, and and this is all happening live. So right now I have I have 5 pending changes, and if I come into this report and just copy and paste a visual, for example. Okay, so I made a change, right? I added a visual. If I come back to Visual Studio here, and I click on this, well, technically it should have represented that. Oh, you know what I didn't do? Didn't save. You got to save. So if I come here to save, it's going to write that change back to that file folder. Again, that's that folder that I showed you here with the Power BI project file that's mapped to our source control. So it just wrote that change back there. And now you can see, okay, now I have 6 pending changes, including the change that I just made here. Okay, so this opens up a lot of doors, right? So now I can also just open up Power BI reports in third-party development tools. So here I have in Visual Studio Code, I have the Power BI report definition file open here. So now you can make like bulk updates to a large set of reports, for example, and do a lot of other programmatic things that just weren't possible before these updates. Okay, so that is really the features for the desktop. And I have a slide here, but I think I'm just going to keep demoing the other side of this, which is the Power BI service integration with Git and these project files. So if I come out to my my Power BI workspace that we're using here, let's go to performance sales. All right, so you'll notice that many of you might have already noticed this, but in the workspace settings, you'll notice that this Git integration. What does this mean? Come here and click on this. It means I can connect my workspace to a Git repository, and that is that Azure DevOps repository that I showed earlier. And I can map this, I can set this up by choosing the organization, the project, the repository. Perhaps you create a folder which ties to the workspace. In this case, quick launch sales, what branch you want to use. And then it's going to pretty much, as you make changes, maybe you delete a report, you can see I have some different, it adds this column here called Git status. You can see I have some different statuses for uncommitted, and synced. And synced means these changes are reflected in my source control system. Uncommitted means that they're not. So if I come here to this source control option here, you can see all of the changes that need to be committed, and you can go ahead and choose those. One thing to note here, as this is a preview feature, and again, you want to be cautious using preview features. Sensitivity labels aren't supported yet. So if you have, if you have confidential data, that maybe this isn't the best solution as of yet, but I imagine they will fix this as they keep developing out this feature. But I'm going to come in here and just say message and then commit, and then it's going to, again, it's going to sync these changes back to our source control system in Azure DevOps. So this gives you an idea of sort of the enterprise analytics direction that Microsoft is going, and I assume that at some point Power BI Desktop will have similar source control integration as the Power BI service does. It's weird when Power BI service gets a feature that the Power BI desktop doesn't have. But again, you can control your desktop changes within a third-party tool like Visual Studio Code, which I just showed you. So just to wrap this up with a quick diagram, because I know that's sort of complex and hard to digest. You kind of get an idea of what's going on, right? So really, it's about enabling collaboration among multiple developers. And in this scenario, you could have two people on different machines editing the same content in the Power BI desktop and being able to sync their changes to this remote file um, system or Git repository, and um, and leverage that again to have that continuous development um, and yeah, so I think that was a really cool update that I wanted to point out that has a lot of potential and a lot of potential to um, change workflows from a content management perspective. So that is the new Power BI developer / Git integration in a nutshell. So I'm going to come back to PowerPoint to wrap up. And usually we like to end by talking about some updates we're excited about. So the first one is really, again, is around the Copilot for Power BI. And that's this AI assistant that Power BI is integrating throughout, Microsoft is integrating throughout the Fabric and Power BI ecosystem. You saw a glimpse of that in action with the auto create a report demo that I showed you. But there's a lot of other different applications for this AI that I'm excited about. So hopefully I can show you some of that next time. As well as Data Activator. Data Activator is a tool within Fabric that allows you to set up rules and have those rules scan your data and have business process automatically take place. So for example, if your stock level hits a certain point, you can have Data Activator automatically send a purchase order, for example. So I'm excited about Data Activator and how you can automate business processes within the Fabric Power BI ecosystem, and hopefully I'll have something to share with y'all next time we meet on these two. So with that, brings me to the questions, and we have a few minutes here, and I know that was a lot to cover, but yeah, I just want to say thanks for taking the time out of your day to be here, and hope you found at least one thing that you can take back to your team and show off, and if there's certain features or topics that we showed here that you want us to dive in deeper on a future session, please throw that in the comments or put it into the survey at the end of the session. So if you have any questions, now's the time to ask them. I don't see any right now. Okay, well, I guess that just means that all my demos were crystal clear. So yeah, again, thanks everybody for coming. And I'm always available if you have questions about new features and want to chat. Just reach out to me. Alrighty, hope y'all have a great rest of your week. Thanks for joining.